I'm Sully, and as always, welcome into the Gun Club. Got a few things to hit on tonight, a couple that are going to be kind of interesting. We're going to have a laugh at the end of it. I can pretty much guarantee you that because got an interesting story coming out of Alabama, and we can always share some Alabama stories. They're usually kind of fun. But tonight is the weekly update for Thursday, December 14th. And let's see, a couple things to start on first. I wanted to do a quick update on the Austin, Texas incident. Went back and was able to get a little bit more detail, and they were able to put together a lot more detail on our gentleman down in Austin. And wanted to sort of touch on that again because I know we went through that kind of quick last week. When we put the whole, list of events together, the series of events, he first ends up in a shooting incident where he shoots a police officer at a school ball field. That was about 10:45 that morning. He left there in one vehicle, and about 15 miles away, about an hour and 15 minutes away, is when he runs into the gentleman who was the contractor. That was the Cambodian immigrant. He runs into basically trying to steal his car, shoots him, and also shoots the woman with the baby carriage with the 1-year-old. Fortunately, the 1-year-old remains unharmed. The contractor and the baby's mother, unfortunately, did not make it. Now, 6 miles away from there, 5 hours later, he shoots a cyclist from a moving car. They get a call about this, but the thing is, the call from this one is different, and the vehicle description is different than anything he had earlier. So, well, we go from there. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. He breaks into a house about 2 miles away from there, and this is about 6:30 at night. The father of the house, the husband of the home, sees him breaking in on the doorbell camera. He calls the police. The police respond. Austin PD responds. The Austin PD catches him coming out the back of the house when they pull up, and he exchanges fire with them, wounds one of them multiple times, although the officer is going to make it, and engages in a pursuit with a stolen car that he got the keys for from this house that he had broken in. So it's his third stolen vehicle of the day. Now, the really sad part about this, and the part that really grabbed my attention, this one, he was seen on camera breaking in. The man's calling the police. He's warning the wife and her mother that are at home. The wife and mother were killed. They had the Ring camera, the doorbell camera. I don't know if it was Ring or what the brand was. They had a doorbell cam. He sees it. He calls. What's that saying we always come back to in the 2A community? When seconds count, police were minutes away. The woman and her mother were killed in the house while police were responding. Had they had a firearm in the house, or maybe they did have one, did they know how to use it? Were they familiar with it? Had they ever come up with a home safety plan? Hubby is not there. He's at a third location. Does he call 911 and telling them, look, my wife and her mother are in the house, or my wife and daughter, two people died in a house that the police knew was being broken into, that someone else was calling the PD, and yet they couldn't protect themselves or didn't do anything to protect themselves. Had they been able to, grab something pointy, I don't know, do something. And that really bugs me because, again, this is Texas. Now, granted, it's Austin, which Texas doesn't always claim Austin, but Austin, pretty nice city. I've been to Austin before. Actually kind of fun place to go down on 6th. I've been known to have a little fun down there when I went down to the EMS convention and stuff, but we have a situation where someone is breaking into a house, an armed idiot, an armed maniac, a mental health patient, definitely. And when you see some of his history, you don't get all of this, but they could not defend themselves or did not do anything to defend themselves. Folks, in this day and age, 2A is not an option anymore. It really isn't. And I know there are some people out there who are going to yell at me and say, well, it's not a good idea. I wish that this woman and her daughter had been able to do something to protect themselves in their home. They didn't go a bad place. They weren't out at 3 in the morning club hopping. They weren't doing a drug deal on a street corner. There was nothing illegal whatsoever about them. And as far as the police know, he had no connection whatsoever to this house. He just happened to pull up at this house and go in. And whoever got in his way, well, they didn't make it. And that's sad. But again, this is why I preach training. I preach preparedness, because you know what? It could be your door the next. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more down the line. This guy exchanges gunfire with law enforcement in the backyard, takes off in the car, wrecks the vehicle in pursuit about 3 miles away. So now we've got the woman who's pushing the baby carriage with the 1-year-old dead. We've got the contractor dead. He's just going out to lunch. We have the 2 people in the house dead. And we have a police officer wounded. We've got the cyclist wounded. We've got the officer who exchanged fire with him wounded. Well, he finally wrecks his car in the pursuit. And when they checked on his parents that night at their home down in San Antonio in Bexar County, Texas, his parents were found deceased probably 12 to 24 hours prior. Both gunshot wounds to the head. Now, this gentleman's a piece of work. This gentleman is definitely the exception to the rule. Unfortunately, he was the exception to too damn many rules. Let's look at some of the rules he was an exception to. January 2022, he was arrested on 3 domestic violence charges. Now, he gets out. It was held initially on $1,500 bond. I don't know if it was he needed $1,500 to come up with like a 10% cash alternative on a $15,000 bond, or whether it was just a $1,500 straight cash bond. But this was reduced later thanks to the Texas Organizing Project. They came in and petitioned the court on his behalf to reduce his bond. Because apparently 2 months in jail and nobody wanted to post his bond. Nobody wanted to come up with $1,500 for him. So they petitioned the court and they told the court how this poor guy had been sitting in jail on 3 domestic violence charges. Yeah, for trying to beat the bricks off his own mother and father and his sister. Apparently, he tried to choke them out. You're trying to choke out your own mother and father says a lot about the quality of person you are. Personally, had he been held on bond, we might not be having this discussion. But he's let out. Now, they dropped the bond down to $300. And again, I don't know if that was a 10% cash alternative or how it worked out. But then Texas Organizing Project paid for this bond. Because, it wasn't enough that they helped him get out. No, they got to come up with the money to do it too. I don't know the group and I'm not throwing rocks at them. And I know their heart's in the right place and they're trying to do something right. But sometimes violent people who try to choke out their own parents need to stay in jail. Just saying. Now, he thanked them for doing this by cutting off his ankle monitor that he was required to wear within 24 hours of getting out of jail. Violation of his bond right then and there. Should have been picked up. Unfortunately, at the time, and it has since been changed, Texas's law did not call for him to be immediately picked up as a result of this. So he's left out on the streets. Now, by July of 2022, remember, he's out on bond for a domestic violence charge. He picks up a firearm, buys it in July of 2022. Now, how was he able to buy a gun? Well, it was only an arrest. It was not a conviction. So without having a conviction or anything dirty on his record, it was only an accusation. He's able to buy the firearm. However, this also was a violation of his bond conditions. He was not allowed at that point to possess any type of firearms, ammunition, or weapons. But he also wasn't supposed to cut his ankle monitor off, and apparently the gentleman didn't care. He kept on going. He buys this pistol. It's a .45 caliber pistol with 2 standard magazines. Now, in the aftermath of this, there's been a lot of talk about, well, maybe Texas needs stronger gun laws. Maybe we need stronger gun control. And there was a big discussion on one of the Twitter feeds about stronger gun control because of this. We didn't need stronger gun control. We needed stronger criminal control. The gentleman has a mental health history. He was dealt with by Austin PD in 2018 for being suicidal. He was discharged from the military, possibly related to a domestic violence incident in 2015. He's tried to choke out his own mother, his own father, his own sister. This guy, honestly, he's an accident waiting to happen. And unfortunately, there's no criminal control until we have a stack of bodies. Until there's a stack of bodies laying in the aftermath, then we worry about, well, it's the guns problem. It wasn't the guns problem. Had he not been able to get a gun, he might have used the car to mow down the cyclist. We saw that in Vegas. It's not a matter of what the weapon is or what the tool of choice was. It was a matter straight out of this guy violated his bond conditions twice and was never picked up. Had 3 outstanding warrants for failure to appear, plus violated his bond once that they knew of by cutting off the monitor, once they didn't know of by getting a gun. 5 bond violations. We're not doing criminal control. And until we can start doing some damn criminal control, things like this are going to keep happening. And it's sad. And it shouldn't happen. But we're going to keep hearing stories like this. Honestly, I hate to say it, Texas Organizing Project, they can't always be responsible for what they did. I don't necessarily fault them 100%, but I do wish that they look at the mental health and violence potential of the people they want to represent and go out in front of the court for. Yes, I think it's awful that somebody has to sit in jail waiting for their trial date because they're only accused, they're not actually guilty. But at some point, one of the key points of the justice system is keeping us safe. Now, let's say he gets no cash bail or gets out on a low bond. That house he breaks into. What if that house he broke into had a gun and was able to protect themselves? Well, we'd probably have a couple of less body count on this. What if the woman walking with the stroller with her 1-year-old had been able to protect themselves? Imagine that. What if she had been able to return fire? Or the contractor who he stole the car from? This gentleman was on a rampage, and it's strange, but we don't know what happened in between these times. And could there potentially be another body or two that turns up? He had a 5-hour gap that we're not able to account for his actions right now, so I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised. But so, yeah, we've got to look at these things and try to do criminal control. And yes, I understand that he was only accused of domestic violence, but when, you cut off your ankle monitor, that's not in dispute. You cut off your ankle monitor, they ought to be knocking on your door within an hour. They can't do that. Well, these ankle monitors, maybe, they're on there to just keep an honest man honest. And if it's a dishonest person, what happens? Well, a year later, he kills 6 people. Shame no one did anything about it. How about some aggressive follow-up on this stuff? Now, the other one that we talked about last week that was kind of weird also was UNLV shooting. Now, the UNLV shooting kind of drew a laugh or so from me when I got some of the details of it, and we'll talk about it. Now, the shooter had applied to be a professor at UNLV in 2020, but wasn't hired for whatever reason. We don't know. He had formerly taught extensively at Eastern Carolina University for like 16 years. He was reported for inappropriate comments to a female student in 2016. We don't know anything about what happened, but he just left shortly after that. I believe January 1 of 2017 is when he decided not to return. So within a year of that incident. Were there other incidents? We don't know. Haven't heard it yet. But he made inappropriate comments about the, let's just say the anatomy of a certain female student. He was known for his frequent trips to Vegas, talking about how he went, 24 times over the course of 15 years, talking about his Vegas vacations. People in his classes used to joke about the fact of, hey, if you want to blow off a day or you want to distract him, get him talking about his Vegas trips and you can blow off the rest of the class because he'll go on about Vegas. Okay. Now, on the day of the shooting, he stopped by the Henderson, Nevada post office, mailed 22 letters to various professors before the shooting. Now, these letters contained a white powder in them. Now, fortunately, it was an inert white powder, but he apparently has these letters that he's mailed out. They've not released the contents of the letters yet. He also, at his apartment, had a target list of various staff members at UNLV and Eastern Carolina. He's got an extensive personal website up. I looked at it, went through. It's primarily just a page, well, several page scroll of links to different other sites, bookstores, sites with different scientific theories on it. Nothing that was really interesting. Lists of different news organizations, just links to everything. Didn't really, trip my trigger. Didn't see anything on there related to the shooting. However, there's rumors that he did have somewhat of a pseudo manifesto in his apartment. Again, nothing's been released yet. We know how fun it is to try to get our hands on those. But when we look at this guy as a whole, what else do we notice about him? He was a respected member of the faculty, PhD, well educated, apparently had some kind of meltdown. We don't know what happened. He bought a firearm legally over a year in advance. And yes, the other gentleman also bought the firearm over a year in advance. So tell me waiting periods work. They don't. Waiting periods only work, A, people who buy a firearm through typical channels, which most of the guns sold on the street to criminals, they don't go through typical channels. And secondly, these people plan this stuff well in advance. I'm sure he had these 22 letters he typed up written more than 3 days in advance. Now, the first fellow, I don't think he really put much of a plan together, but he went planning on a rampage. He had a gun for well over a year, and he took that 45 and went on out. Now, the 45 is definitely not what I would consider an assault weapon, and most 45 caliber magazines are not what you'd call high capacity magazines. Most of the 45s I've dealt with are 1911 type models, maybe 8, maybe 9 rounds in a magazine. I don't think there's a lot of double stack 45 mags out there. It'd be kind of hard to get the old bear paw around it. But with that being said, let's look at assault weapons and large capacity magazines and waiting periods and all the damn buzzwords and all the garbage crap that keeps coming out. We need these, we need these, we need these. Neither one of them would have had anything to do with either of these shootings. Now, the other part about this one that really gets me and is amusing to me, I guess, is a little, my own mentality. This is the firearm that was involved. It's a Taurus PT-92. It's a simple, pretty straightforward 9mm semi-auto, and they made a big deal of the fact that, well, he had over 150 rounds of ammunition. Folks, you buy ammunition by a box, so it's about 3 boxes of ammo. 3 boxes of ammo. I've shot more than 150 rounds on the range on a good afternoon. When I was in law enforcement, we'd frequently go through 150 rounds if you're qualifying on 2 or 3 different weapons in a day. Or if someone went out and had a bad round the first time in qualifying and didn't score high enough, they might have to remediate and fire another 50. They go through 2 boxes. So the fact that he had a semi-automatic handgun and 150 rounds of ammo, and we need to do something about this. I'm really familiar with this semi-automatic handgun, and the reason is because, well, I happen to have one. That's right. The big, bad, awful, no good gun that he had, I basically have got its brother right here. And yes, that is the same gun. Mine's got the wraparound plastic grip on it, just because the wood grips were a little bit rough in the winter time, or especially when we were working patrol, we would, a lot of times they're kind of slick. So we want something with a little bit better grip texture to it, rather than the slick polished wood finish. I mean, the wood looks pretty, don't get me wrong, but if you're out cold, wet, rainy, working patrol, your service weapon is out, it's wet, and you're trying to pull it out in a hurry, having something with a positive, imprint grip, much nicer. Now, I purchased that pistol. It was one of the first semi-autos I ever owned. I bought it probably about 1994, which is, back during when they had the first assault weapons ban. Well, the president came out and in his infinite wisdom, in the aftermath of these two shootings, said this is why Congress needs to do something about assault weapons right now. And they tried to bring up an assault weapons bill in the Senate under unanimous consent, and it pretty much got nowhere at that moment. And he said, well, you see, Republicans just want this to keep on happening. When are the people in Washington going to quit playing damn politics? The assault weapons ban? A 45 caliber with a single stack magazine? It's not an assault weapon. This Taurus? No, it's not an assault weapon. These things have been around 25 years. Now, I don't know whether that particular weapon has been around 25 years, but it is definitely not a big, bad assault weapon. It's nothing that anyone would think would be an assault weapon. And so to even use the term assault weapon in the same breath as either of these shootings, much less that, well, if we don't go along with the assault weapons ban, we want this to happen. Here's the problem. They can pass their assault weapons ban. It would not have affected this one way or the other. And unfortunately, the people are still playing damn games and saying, look, we're going to come up with a project. We're going to come up with an assault weapons ban. Yeah, well, it wouldn't have done any good, but that's okay. They're playing politics. And that's where I get so frustrated with a lot of the gun control legislation or proponents, because they propose things that won't have any effect whatsoever. 3-day waiting period. Guys got the guns a year in advance. How about we get better mental health restrictions? I could do with that. How about we look at possibly, I don't know, better criminal control? How about we follow up on people who have misdemeanor warrants for failure to appear? Because if they're willing to do that and cut their ankle monitor off, it's a matter of time till they do something else. Get news, they don't cut their ankle monitor off because it itches. Just saying. But we have so many people, unfortunately, whether it be the ATF or some of the people up at the federal level, trying to push different bans and rules and regulations, and they're wasting time, effort, and energy when we could be doing something that would make life safer, that might save some of the lives in this. But unfortunately, they'd rather play politics with it. And yeah, I'm calling you out, Joe. I'm calling you out because you'd rather play politics.
Who in God's name needs a weapon with 100 rounds in a chamber?
Yeah, somebody get Brandon before he hurts himself, would you please? Okay, now a little bit of legal news. Our Department of Justice, gee, imagine that right on the hair of this, came up with a great idea. They've drafted proposed safe storage laws. Now, they don't pass laws. The Department of Justice really doesn't write laws. Theoretically, Congress and the legislature should. But what our DOJ has decided to do in their infinite wisdom is put together a draft or a proposed thing that various states can come up with and cut and paste to make laws in their state. That we think this would be a great idea. Well, some states already have some type of safe storage law, and there's different kinds of them, and they can vary widely from state to state. Some of them are what we call conditional laws. A conditional law says, okay, if you are a firearms owner, it's your responsibility to keep your firearms locked up, secured when it's unattended, if there's any possibility that a child or a prohibited possessor or a mentally incompetent person who's been adjudicated as such can get their hands on it. So, would that type of law really apply to me? I live alone. I've not been adjudicated as mentally incompetent, although I've got a few friends who might beg to differ. If you beg to differ, throw me something in the chat and let me know. You think I'm knuckenfutz? But, if they're adjudicated as mentally defective or mentally incompetent or a young child, so okay, if you've got kids in the house, you need to have your guns all locked up. It would not say anything to me about having it because I don't have any young kids in the house, don't have any prohibited possessors living here, don't have any mentally incompetents living here that have been adjudicated as such. Okay, big fine line there. And so, therefore, if I go to bed tonight and I leave this sitting right on my desk here, it wouldn't be a problem leaving a gun laying around because there's no one in the damn house that can get to it. That's a problem. Only person who can get to it is me. And I've got the combination to the gun safe. So if I put it back in the gun safe, it wouldn't change anything. Now, let's say you have a wife gets a gun to protect herself, and her husband has been either adjudicated mentally incompetent or he's got some bad stuff on his background or something like that. She would be responsible when she's not in possession of the gun to secure it or lock it up or do something to keep it out of his hands, out of the hands of a prohibited possessor. Those are conditional laws. Some of them, they don't look too bad. The continuous laws are really interesting. There are some places where just having it out and around anytime, regardless of who's in the house, would be illegal, would be a problem, would be a crime. And from that standpoint, honestly, if I want to leave a firearm laying on my nightstand when I get up out of bed in the morning and I go on about my day, well, I'm not attending to it, I'm not right there with it, but there's no one in the house besides me, so who gives a damn? That way at least gives you a little bit of freedom. The continuous laws, it would have to be locked up all the time unless I'm sitting right there looking at it. Okay. Now, when you get into some of these, they're also trying to talk about different restrictions as far as when you have to report something stolen, how soon, is it immediately, is it within 48 hours of realizing it's missing, is it within 3 days, 5 days, 7 days? Now, this can be positive. You report it stolen, you give them all the information. If you have all the information, great. But what happens if for some reason I don't remember the serial number or I can't find the serial number where it was written down on lists that I've had for 25 or 30 years? Well, then I couldn't adequately report it. So then am I a criminal because I don't have a serial number on something I bought 30 years ago? Now, I know some firearms owners keep great records and a logbook of all their serial numbers. That's wonderful. But if your house gets robbed and your book of serial numbers gets stolen with your guns and you can't properly report it, where would that go? So again, while I think they're trying to help a problem or fix a problem, we kind of got to make sure that if your state is looking at one of these, read them, comment, get with your legislatures and say we shouldn't make it that much of a big deal to have a gun. Imagine if you had a power saw or a chainsaw and they said, oh, by the way, if your garage gets broken into and your chainsaw gets stolen, if you don't notify law enforcement and give them all the details and the serial number and the engine size and the bar length on it, within 48 hours, we're going to charge you with a crime. People will be wondering whether they want to go through all that to have a chainsaw. Yeah. And then when we have an ice storm and no one can get a tree out of the roadway, we'll all know why. Think about it, do you know the number of your cell phone? If your cell phone got stolen, do you know its serial number? Can you get it within 48 hours? Get it to the police? How about if it's a gun that's at a hunting lodge or a hunting camp that you have locked up, but someone breaks in and they steal a hunting rifle at your hunting lodge? Well, it got broken into more than 48 hours ago and you didn't report it. So, we might have to charge you now. Again, not saying these laws have bad intent, but they can become very bad if used in the wrong way. So again, look at them. Also, some of them have civil liability wording in there, and that's where things can get a little bit hairy. We talk about what is civil liability. That's what someone can sue you for. Okay, criminal liability is what you can go to jail for. Civil liability is what you can get sued for. So let's say someone breaks into your house, you think your guns are locked up safe, but they somehow break into your lockbox, or your lockbox isn't strong enough. How strong would your lockbox have to be? Guess it'd be up to your state. Maybe you didn't go far enough. That lockbox you secured that gun in that was good for 30 years. Well, maybe it's not good enough because someone broke into it with a sledgehammer or with power tools or whatever. And now they've got your gun and they go out and shoot someone that's found at a crime scene. Oh, wow. Your lockbox wasn't strong enough. So now their family can sue you for how much? Again, it's trying to put more weight on the back of people who own a lawful item. Let's remember at the basis, folks, firearms are lawful items. People who get them are lawful. The vast majority of firearms owners out there are lawful citizens who just either enjoy hunting or enjoy target shooting or enjoy going to the range and plinking, want to go out and get some recoil therapy. Or heck, maybe they just want to be able to protect themselves. Because again, maybe they want daughter and mom to live through it to not be found dead by the cops when they get there. I don't know. Yeah, it is what it is, folks. So again, looking at these folks, if they try to push it out in your state, and look at what your state has. Definitely the safe storage laws. Everyone thinks, oh, of course we should store guns safely. And I believe we should. But I also don't think we should make it so arbitrary and capricious on the neck of the firearm owner to deal with that. Now, I told you we'd end with a good giggle or two. Let's first talk about this Palmetto State Armory Rock. Now, I ended up purchasing one of these. I tried it in a class I was at. I was actually instructing. One of my students had it. We talked about it a little bit. He let me try it out on the range. I kind of liked it. So after taking it for a test drive, I've kind of been looking for one. Now, the Rock is a 5.7 millimeter by 28 pistol. It's definitely kind of a different, breed of cat from what I've seen previously. The 5.7 cartridge, we don't know all the ballistics on it yet. I'm actually working on a project to work on that. However, I will say that, they're really interesting. The 5.7 cartridge was designed as a NATO replacement for the 9mm. NATO hasn't gone over yet, but who's to say they won't? Now, beyond that, when you're looking at the 5.7 cartridge, I don't know the ballistics, but, again, we're going to try that, see what we can come up with, and see what it looks like ballistically. I'm interested in, taking it for a test drive at some point. Put it out on the chrono, see what it is as compared to, say, other rounds versus, say, a 9mm, different things like that. It's a very interesting shape of a bullet. Now, the Rock comes in a nice little nylon case there. As you can see, it comes with a couple mags, nice embroidered PSA case, operator's manual, the pistol itself. As a matter of fact, I actually have it right here for show and tell. Here's our PSA Rock. And as we look at it, bring this up on the bag. Here's our PSA Rock. And as you open it up, she looks something like this. And the case is actually pretty cool. Nice quality case. The two mag holders there are actually Velcroed in, so you could take and you can easily remove one of these mag holders. You can move the lock holder, whatever's in there, set it up different ways. The model I got is actually came with two 23-round mags. 23-round mags, yes. Came with, and the 23-round mag, to give you an idea, is really interesting. It's the shape of the cartridge is the 5.7 millimeter. You think 9mm round. The 5.7, the mag is this big. That's 23-round mag right there. About the size of a cell phone. They're very small cartridges. They actually stack in, double stack, sort of a staggered stack. It also came with installation plates for optics. They were an option. I did not put an optic on it yet. May look at putting something on it like Holosun, something like that. Also came with the gun lock, the case, and the operator's manual. Again, you can see here on the photo on your right, there's the one I got. Now, I did get the threaded barrel with the thread protector on it, and that is just the one that was on discount. I wasn't planning on threading anything onto it, but if you wanted to put a muffler or something like that on it or some suppressor, that's definitely an option, possibly with this cartridge. The bar cut for the optic on the upper slide on the right there, 2 mounting plates, depending on what brand of optic you use. I've got those sort of sitting on the side till I decide what my optic's going to be or what my next thought of it's going to be. The underside of the front of the slide is also notched out with a pick rail on there that you can put a light, a weapons light, laser, whatever, put a sight on there if you decided you wanted to go that route with it. Overall, pretty good shooting gun. Trigger performance has been excellent. A little bit of take up on it, but not excessive by any stretch. To a nice solid wall. Break is very crisp. Reset is very nice. Is a very minimum reset. And so your second shot, you can definitely train your double tap very well on it to drop 2 in a row like nothing. Beyond that, I will say my downside of it was the sights. Now, granted, this one was made with suppressor height sights in case you want to put a suppressor on it. It also is designed, cut out for the optic to be put on it, but you're looking at the stock sights there. Very skinny front post, doesn't really show much of anything as far as its look-see. And when we look at it here, again, not really the type of thing that's easy to pick up or track when you're working, especially in low light conditions. My number one fix on this one, or my number one tinker, I should say, on this one, is going to be to do something with the sights. Just in a quick comparison, these sights, again, to the stock sights on the Palmetto State Armory Dagger, excuse me. The Dagger Compact came with a much nicer sighting system there. The 3 dots, very visible, very plain to see. So again, from that standpoint, you're going to do a little work on the sights. I'm not sure exactly which way I'm going with them yet. I've looked at either doing a Trijicon or something like that, night sights, got some different options. A sight upgrade on it, depending on if I do it myself or if I have someone else do it, looking probably between, on the low end, $60 if I DIY it, and if I send it out, probably $150 to have someone professionally do something with them, depending on what kind of sights I go with. I mean, you can go up from there. As we all know, in the firearms world, there's not necessarily a top spend amount. Again, from what I've dealt with, the gun is a good shooting gun. I'm happy with the performance of it. It is less recoil than the Dagger. I did a lot of comparison between it and the Dagger. I took it out. The interesting thing is the rock itself weighs 26 ounces empty. And with a full load of 23 plus 1, you're talking about 31 ounces. So again, still lighter than most of the metal frame guns out there. In comparison, the Dagger itself is 23 ounces empty, so about 3 ounces less, and about 29.5 ounces fully loaded 15 plus 1. So from that standpoint, definitely a nice shooting gun. I've noticed the one thing on it, because the mag is somewhat narrower, the grip is somewhat narrower and longer, much like the cartridge is narrower and longer. The 5.7 cartridge, if you picture in your mind a little mini 223 cartridge, it's kind of what this looks like. It's like a 223 had a little brother, and that's a 5.7 by 28. Very interesting. Again, you're talking 28 to 40 grain weights, what I'm seeing on them. And I want to definitely play with the ballistics on it and see. From what I've been told, they, much lighter bullet weight, but much faster coming out the barrel. Especially, I'm sure, on this 5-inch barrel, a 4.8-inch barrel, definitely be a lot faster. So there's our PSA rock. Overall, it is another PSA gun. PSA between their dagger, their admiral, and now their rock. For the price point they're at. Oh yeah, the price point on this one, set up the way it is with the threaded barrel and the end cap on it, 2 mags, the nylon carrying case, the optic cutout milled into the slide, the plates to put the optics on, all milled in, all included with it. Whole setup ran me $425. Now, there's only 4 companies I know right now that are making the 5.7s. Primarily, it's FN, Fabrique Nationale, Smith, Ruger, and PSA. The Fabriques, you're looking at $1,200 and up. The Smiths and the Rugers, you're looking in the $600 to $800 range, depending on what you get. Some of the Smiths actually have the optic included with it. So again, just your mileage may vary at your local store. The Palmetto State Armory is the discount version of all of them. And honestly, having handled this gun, this is not a discount gun. This is not, I'll be honest with you. I just held up. I've got an old Taurus, okay? Now, I got the Taurus when I was 20-something years old. And it was what it was. This one is definitely a very good quality firearm, fit, finish, cycling. I put 50 rounds out so far, no problems with it. Looking at going out and doing a torture test on it. So going to see how that plays out. But overall, very happy with what it is and definitely like it. And it's going to be an interesting to, again, look at the ballistics. I want to do a comparison between the Dagger Compact in 9mm and the PSA Rock in the 5.7 and do little ballistics differentials and see how that works out. We're going to have some fun stuff coming up in ballistics. Some of it may not actually even come out till the springtime. I've talked with a couple of my friends who are instructors and some of these folks and said, look, let's go out and have a ballistics day, break out all the toys, the chronometers, the gels, all the stuff, and just spend a day or two out at the range, massive amounts of recoil therapy, and get stats and data and information enough to make several shows out of it, successive shows, and really dig into ballistics a bit. So that's what we're looking at. But it's also 42 degrees outside right now, so I think our high today was about 58. May not be doing it right now. We may wait for the springtime, but such is life. Now, on to our good guy with the gun. Now, this good guy with the gun came across my desk earlier today, and it was absolutely the wildest thing I had seen in a while. Jewelry store faces down thief. This took place in Gardendale, Alabama, wherever that is. Anyone in Alabama know anything about Alabama? I know some of the people in the chat sometimes have friends in Alabama, have big friends in Alabama. I know sometimes people down in Alabama, they're drinking fight milk or doing who knows what in Alabama. But this one comes out of Alabama. 32-year-old woman walks into the jewelry store and wishes everyone a happy holidays, then proceeds to pull out a canister and spray everyone with bear spray. Now, first off, says a little something about these happy holidays people. If you can't say Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, come on, Happy Holidays, like sounds wishy-washy. Personally, I tell people Merry Christmas. If that offends them, I'm sorry. If I happen to know that they're of the Jewish persuasion, or I'll wish them a Happy Hanukkah. Now, I'm not Jewish, and I don't even understand all about Hanukkah, but I have no problem with saying Happy Hanukkah to someone. I have no problem with saying Merry Christmas to someone. If someone says I, celebrate Kwanzaa, well, have a wonderful Kwanzaa. May, be great. Happy holidays. Yeah. Whips out bear spray. Well, the store owner whipped out something a little bit better than bear spray, opens fire, strikes her in the shoulder. She ends up dropping her purse and her things, screams at him to stop, and runs out the door. Apparently, she didn't think this thing through too much. Now, they did say that there were multiple other weapons that was described as other weapons in the article in her purse. I don't know what other weapons she had in her purse. I know that she started off the day by bringing bear spray to a gunfight, and it didn't work out really well for the home team. Now, as much as I've talked about this stuff, and as much as we talk on this channel about shootings and different things, and how I wished that mother and daughter team in Texas, I wish they had had an AR loaded with hot loads in that door. I wish that they had had a 5.7 rock and a 9mm dagger, and I wish when that guy walked through the door, they had lit him up, because I want them to live. I don't want him to die, but I want them to live. This jewelry store owner, he didn't want anyone to die, but he wanted himself and his employees to live and be safe. And so this is really interesting. They came out with a quote from him in the article. Some poor choices by somebody made me do something I hoped I'd never have to do. He went on to say that he was glad that he had only wounded her. He was glad that they tracked her down fairly quickly and that she was still alive and was able to go to the hospital and receive treatment for the wounds. Firearm owners don't want to kill anybody. I don't carry a gun to impose my will on others or to end other people's lives. I carry a gun so no one will do it to me. I carry a gun because I realize there are nut jobs out there like this idiot running around Austin for a day, indiscriminately going after people who he didn't even know. I do it because there's a university professor from somewhere between Eastern Carolina University and UNLV that had a kill list. Am I on someone's kill list out there? I mean, I'm sure there's 2 or 3 people who might have me on their kill list. And you know what? If I am, and if that's what they want to do, that's fine. I want to have a voice in that decision. I want to have a big voice in that decision. Maybe I've ticked them off. Maybe I've said something nasty about them on here. Maybe I've laughed at them. Maybe this is, this woman is someone's sister or cousin or something who's on here. And they see this video and they say, he made fun of her for bringing bear spray to a gunfight. I'll show him. That's fine. That's their choice. They want to do that. It's their choice to be 50 Shades of Stupid. I want to protect myself, the people around me, the people I care about, and again, whether it be people I know directly or a stranger in a store or a stranger in a parking lot. Think about the people in the jewelry store, himself, his employees, possibly other customers. She walks in and says, "Happy holidays," and whips out the bear spray. Folks, his response is, "I'm glad she was found still alive. I'm glad she's going to be okay, because some poor choices by somebody else made me do something I hoped I'd never have to do." It says a lot about him as a person, as a firearms owner. He could have just, let it go on. It was only bear spray. How bad was it going to get? He didn't know, were there other weapons in her purse? What could she have done? And, we're going to get a picture of her here. This is her hosing down everybody in the jewelry store, walking in the door with her bear spray. Folks, it says something about the mask wearers too, If someone's wearing a mask in this day and age, now I'm not talking when COVID was big or Rona was going crazy, but if someone's wearing a mask out in public, walking into stores like this in this day and age, maybe they're medically fragile, maybe there's something going on, there's something, specific. But on the other side of that coin, is that not the modern day train robber's mask? You go back 10 years, somebody walks into a store with a, bandana tied around their face. Wasn't that what they used to wear to rob trains and stuff? Rustlers, yeah. The Old West, they'd wear these masks to conceal their identity. So it is what it is. Fortunately for her, she is going to be okay. She's 32 years of age, don't know anything about any criminal history, couldn't find anything on her. And you've got to wonder what made her decide to go into a jewelry store, say happy holidays, and pull out the bear spray. Not her best thing. Alrighty, that is about what I've got for tonight for our weekly update for December 14th, 2023. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been not only informational, educational. Let me know what you think, please. And if you have a question or a comment or something else, you want more info on something we covered, by all means, feel free to reach out. You can find me on X or Twitter or Twix. I think I'm going to call it Twix at TheGunClub.com. Facebook, The Gun Club Podcast. We do have our locals group, although not really active in it right now. I need to do better on that. I'm kind of a slack ass on that. You can always come check out our Rumble library and all the good stuff we have there. And email me directly at mike.southeastdefense@gmail.com. Got news. We're going to be having a lot of interesting stuff we're working on for 2024. I don't know what our streaming schedule is going to be during Christmas. I'm not really planning on streaming like the day after Christmas or Christmas Eve or anything like that. But, I promise you I will use that time to come up with some more interesting and fun clips that we can throw on here. And also maybe a few more good things to laugh at Brandon and his crazy stupidity. Folks, be smart, be safe. Bye.